Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I was reading through some health and fitness news stories and everything, going through Associated Press looking for things, and I saw a little interview with celebrity chef Robert Irvine, who himself works out in great shape for a middle-aged guy, an older guy, in fantastic shape actually, and he apparently does a little bit of muscle mag writing also, and it reminded me about this whole topic of meal frequency being a weight loss tool. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, do a little bit of crafting, and let's talk about this. All right, we see people still promoting this today, certain celebrity experts, gurus, other people still talking about high meal frequency as a weight loss tool for a variety of reasons. Oftentimes those reasons incorrect. The cliff notes for people who don't like these longer videos. High meal frequency, the data shows there are no benefits. The various hypotheses behind it have been tested and have been found false, and that for every person you find who high meal frequency helps them with their appetite and helps them lose weight, you find another person statistically who it hurts and makes them hungrier and hurts their weight loss efforts. So as an actual strategy, it's totally hit or miss. Works for some people, doesn't work for others. So using it as a cookie cutter, really bad idea. To use it as a general fitness advice, it's a bad idea because of that. All right, a little more detail. Yeah, we see people doing this, and I saw him say that that's one of the keys, one of the biggest keys to his advice that's helped people, viewers of his, lose over 100 pounds. The problem there, number one, it's often touted is because of the thermic effect of food. Your metabolism goes up from eating more frequently. This is a hypothesis made about 20 years ago by some actual nutrition experts. And it's a sound hypothesis. It's something you look at and say, okay, that makes sense, let's test it. Because, every time you eat, your body generates body heat. You have a thermic effect of food that you have to burn off, right? Known, proven scientific fact. Well, it's close to being a fact you're going to find. But it does happen, very measurable. So the idea was that, you rev your body's furnace up, rev up your metabolism by eating more meals, right? So when we've tested it repeatedly in quite a few studies, what we find, it's not true. Because you're eating smaller meals, you get a smaller thermic effect. Meaning when you eat X number of calories from carbs, protein, fat, and whatever combination, you get X amount of thermic effect and energy burn, right? It's directly proportionate to the calories. So a 300 calorie meal only has half the thermic effect of a 600 calorie meal. So 300 calorie meals gives you the exact same net thermic effect and metabolism boost as 3 600 calorie meals. You get the exact same net effect when we studied in the metabolic ward. So it's not actually useful because half the size meal gives you half the size of benefit. Nice theory, nice hypothesis. When it's been tested, it's just been found to not work. It's not true. It works exactly how science should. The thermic effect is directly proportional to the caloric intake of each macronutrient. Certain types of carbs and certain types of protein produce more thermic effect than others. But if they're kept constant, same type of carbs are eaten, same type of proteins are eaten, etc., it's directly proportionate to their caloric value. So again, just hasn't panned out in the real world. But it's a nice theory. And it needed to be tested. It needed to be tested to prove that. Because had it been true, it would have been really valuable. It would have been very, very useful for both weight gain and weight loss. Now, as far as the appetite control, the whole idea and is that, look, you're eating more often. So for some people, that keeps their blood sugar levels more stable because they're eating smaller meals, they're getting less spikes in food. But you know what? That's not true for everybody. And it's particularly not true once you start getting into really slower absorbing foods. If you're eating a lot of fiber, things like that, high fibrous foods, lower glycemic value foods, it becomes less and less of an issue as far as the glycemic load, insulin response, stuff like that. It just becomes less important. 3-4 meals a day is going to be just fine. You're not going to see a difference there on that end. Usually your biggest spike and drop in blood sugar is from the first meal you eat in the day after you've been fasting. After that, again, it becomes less of an issue in general, but definitely less of an issue if you're just eating more whole foods. So if people are sitting around eating junk food, okay, you might have a point. But if you're sitting around eating Twinkies and drinking Dr. Pepper all day long when you're trying to lose fat, you're already using a bad strategy. And those might benefit more from the more frequent feedings on that end. But again, why would you be eating shit like that all day if your goal is actually to lose fat and you struggle with appetite? It's not going to work. You're better off eating foods that don't have that problem. Then problem solved. As far as the other appetite ends of it goes, for some people, because they get to eat more often, And particularly if you're using higher volume foods. Again, this doesn't work with low satiety foods. Higher volume foods that they have to chew on, crunch on, have enough fiber in there to fill them up, a little bit of protein to fill them up. All right, for some people it reduces their appetite. They end up eating less calories through the day. However, when we study it, it's probably about an even mix. About a third of people, it seems to reduce their appetite. A third of people don't really, no difference. And maybe a third of people, again, these are rough ballparks because it varies depending on how big of a group you get. It makes them hungrier. So here's the problem there. If you have a strategy, a weight loss strategy that for some people, a third of people, it reduces their appetite, hey, fantastic. If you happen to get lucky and your clients and people following your advice are that third of people, it's going to be golden. It's going to look like fantastic advice, right? It reduces their appetite. Anything that reduces your appetite and keeps your energy constant is going to be a weight loss miracle for a person. The problem is there's just as many people who it makes them hungrier. Well, anything that makes you hungrier or makes you moodier or has your energy levels drop, which this does for some people because they just don't get enough food at one time to ever feel like they filled up or to be satiated. They just get hungry again sooner and they want to eat even more. So if you're those people and it makes you hungrier, you're going to eat more. If it makes you have less energy, you're going to move less and burn less calories. So if you happen to be one of those people, this amazing weight loss strategy for one person is going to turn into a nightmare for you that might completely sabotage your fat loss efforts. So the problem is that when you start recommending generic advice, that for just as many people it has miraculous results as it does for people who it totally ruins and sabotages their efforts, you've got a problem giving it as generic advice. And the only way to give advice like that is the opposite, is to say, you've got to try that and see if it works for you. And I mean, you've got to be honest with people about that and really look at the numbers and the data and tell people, look, this strategy helps some people suppress their appetite, but it makes other people hungrier. If it helps you feel fuller and have more energy, do it. Go for it. That's going to help you amazingly well. But if it makes you hungrier, throw it out the window. It's garbage for you. Not going to work. And you've got to be honest with people like that and understand that just because a strategy works for you and works for some of your clients and some people you give advice to doesn't mean it works for everyone. You've got to look a little closer at it. And I would say it's the same thing with like ketogenic diets. A lot of people swear by them. I tell people that. I've used ketogenic diets in the past to lose weight. They don't always work for me. Other times they worked amazingly well. You know what? It's based on individual appetite. Some people, probably about 25% of the population, from the data I've seen over the years, various studies and looks at it, do really, really well on ketogenic diets. About 1 in 4 people thrive on ketogenic diets. Their appetite's under control, their energy's great, they can exercise just fine. For those people, ketogenic diets are a miracle. For everybody else, not so much. So you see the problem there. Any strategy that for a minority of people seems to have a miraculous result isn't a miracle in general. It's not going to be a viable generic weight loss strategy. It's just not a good idea. You have to let people know, hey, only about a fourth of people really thrive on ketogenic diets, but if you happen to be that fourth, go for it. It's going to give you miraculous results. It's going to be probably the best thing you've ever tried. But if you get hungry on it all the time, you feel lethargic after you've been on it for 3 weeks straight, if you're still having problems, that's one of those diets you need to throw out the window. It's garbage for you. You know what? We all have different metabolisms. We have different hormonal responses to food. We have different leptin and ghrelin responses to different diet strategies. And it's not just good enough to say, hey, everyone is different. We actually have to actively look at it, figure out why these things work for some people. But most importantly, you have to let people know if this strategy isn't working for you, then you got to throw it out. We know on ketogenic diets around the 3-week mark if they're going to work for you or not. You can assess them and be like, hey, this is going to work great for me or this is going to be garbage. I mean, you've got to be willing to tell people that when you're giving fitness or weight loss advice. They have to be armed with that sort of knowledge. And it's really just a bad idea to do what people like Robert Irvine do and say, hey, I just find this general strategy works. Well, it really doesn't work. It only works for about a third of people. So again, you see the problem. You're giving something that works really well for a third of people as generic advice. Well, it helped thousands of people who are my fans. Well, what about the thousands of people who tried it and it didn't help? You're totally discounting them. That has to be factored in. And you can't take a strategy like that and claim it's the most important and one of your main strategies. Because if it does, at least half of your audience and half the people you're giving advice to are getting bad advice. And that's the crazy thing with these differences and individual differences in appetite and responses to diets and food as humans. You have to actually find what works for a given individual. And if you don't, it's no better than just picking random fad diets and throwing it out there. Because, you're just taking a shot in the dark. And you know what? That all of it actually comes down to that. There are some things you're going to find in health and fitness that work for almost everybody, 90+% of the population. You're going to find other things that work for a minority of people. You got to know which is which and find the differences. But you do have to acknowledge the fact that something that only works for a minority of people might work insanely well for that minority of people. And if it does, then it's going to be a beautiful strategy for them. But they're going to go running around telling everybody, this is so amazing, it works so well for me. But at the end of the day, if they haven't been told, hey, this only works for a third of people, this only works for a fourth of people, they're not going to realize they might be giving bad advice to their friends, family, and loved ones. So again, it's important to know these things, especially for people who are touted as experts who are out there giving advice. They need to know these things. They have a responsibility to know these things. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.